Um, all right, so we have a full virtual house tonight, and then myself and John So here at the center. Um, so thanks everybody for joining. Everyone knows Lama Losang, our spiritual director of KTC Jacksonville. So it's wonderful. He's here the second Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. as part of our Buddhism Basics study and discussion group that we have here. We welcome everyone virtually and also in person. And Lama, thank you for we submitted a few topics, and we just completed the section on the three kayas of Traleg Rinpoche's book, Buddhism. And we are about to start reading about Sutra and Tantra, the tantric levels of attainment. So maybe you can give us some
a little preview of what's ahead.
Yes, that would be wonderful. So thank you so much. Go ahead and turn it over to you.
All right. Well, we began just briefly to talk about the four great observances for Buddhist practitioners. And today, July 9th, is one of those special great observances where we're celebrating the Buddha's teaching, the first turning of the wheel of Dharma, where he taught the Four Noble Truths to the original 5 disciples in Deer Park, in Sarnath, which is a district north of Varanasi. And it was out of his wisdom that he knew that those yogis were going to be there. And at 49 days after his enlightenment, he was ready to teach. He paused. He didn't know. Well, I shouldn't say he didn't know. He took 49 days to kind of assimilate, I think, the situation of Buddhahood. And then he was asked by Brahma and the gods to please teach. So again, in his omniscience, he went to Deer Park, and 49 days after the Buddha demonstrated his complete enlightenment under the Bodhi tree in Bodh Gaya. So that is, and it is said, that our good deeds are magnified 100 million times, unfortunately, so is our bad deeds today. So it's great that we're having this teaching today. So this is definitely a positive thing to be teaching and hearing the Dharma today. So congratulations to all of you for being here. And so the other ones, as you may know, the Day of Miracles, which is the 15th day of the first lunar month, which is often around New Year's, we celebrate. These are really a month long, but today is is the day that we celebrate. So there's the Chokhor Duchen. We celebrate many miracles, and that is pretty much after Losar through the 15th lunar day. And then Sagadawa, which is another special day, which is the 4th lunar month. The parinirvana, his birth, his parinirvana, his teaching. This is, we celebrate the great deeds of the Buddha's life on Sagadawa. And then today, as I mentioned, Chokhor Duchen, which is the 4th day of the 6th lunar month in the Buddhist calendar, lunar calendar. We celebrate this first turning of the wheel of Dharma. And then lastly, on the 9th lunar month of the Tibetan calendar, we celebrate Labab Duchen, which the Buddha descended after teaching his mother. He descended from the God realms of the God realm of the 33, and he had gone there to at the age of 41 in order to repay the kindness of his mother and Mayadevi, who died, shortly after his birth. So while there, he taught the other gods as well, and was there, as it said, he taught Dharma for 3 months, and then he returned to Earth. So those are the four kind of special, we call them the four great observances for Buddhist practitioners. And again, in those special times, to make donations to your Lama, or to the center, or to circumambulate stupas, or dedicate your practice. All of those things are considered, ways that we celebrate this and devote our practice and really dedicate ourselves to a day of being mindful, we should say. So that is today. Okay, so yes, I did get the kind of some questions. As I recall, one of them was about Vajra Pride. What was the question about that? What it is, or what's our question?
The question, let's see, the first question we had here about Vajra Pride. One moment. How do we recognize the difference between Vajra Pride and the klesha of ego and arrogance?
All right, well, they are very different. So Vajra Pride is a concept, in Vajrayana Buddhism that refers to having confidence and pride in one's Buddhist practice and spiritual identity, our Buddha nature. And some key things to know about Vajra Pride. Vajra is a Sanskrit word, as you may know, that means both diamond and thunderbolt. It signifies something indestructible and powerful. So Vajra Pride is having an unshakable confidence, and it is based on generally progressing, in one's practice through efforts like meditation and study, moral discipline, etc. And it's not an arrogant or puffed up pride as we usually think about pride. Practitioners cultivate Vajra Pride as an antidote to spiritual laziness and lack of confidence and doubts that can arise along the path. And having Vajra Pride helps sustain, the long-term motivation and perseverance that's necessary to maintain on the path. So Vajra Pride acknowledges that through Buddhist practice, one is developing qualities of wisdom, compassion, and skillful means. And it is taking pride in aligning with that enlightened nature of our mind, and not in a superficial or worldly accomplishments, but in our Buddha nature. So ultimately, Vajra Pride is inseparable from humility, really. As a practitioner recognizes they are just beginning the journey and have so much farther still to go. True Vajra Pride coexists with recognizing one's deficiencies as well. So in short, we can say Vajra Pride means having confidence, an unshakable belief in the Buddhist path and in one's own potential for awakening, based on sincere Dharma practice and progress so far. So we should be happy that we've found the path and that we are engaged in the practice and in the progress that we've made so far. And it supports, long-term spiritual perseverance. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And what other question was there?
The importance of what is the importance of ritual in Vajrayana?
Yeah. So ritual plays, again, a very important role in Vajrayana Buddhism. Some of the key aspects of ritual in Vajrayana, we could say, include, rituals are seen as skillful means to transform one's mind stream and accumulate merit. Specific rituals are believed, to purify karma, for example, our deity practices, and cultivate positive dispositions. And many rituals involve visualizations. We doing deity practices. Again, this is a Vajrayana practice when we talk about rituals. So many rituals involve visualization of deities and mandalas. And this is a form of advanced meditation, really, meant to cultivate compassion and wisdom through the symbolic representations. So we have ritual empowerments known as abhishekas, and these are an integral part of tantric practice, or Vajrayana. And these initiate practitioners into different aspects of the teachings of the Buddha and allow them to engage in advanced practices. So you're familiar, there's things like fire pujas and mantra recitation, and ritualized movements or dance are performed to accumulate positive energy and realize the non-dual nature of phenomena. And we have ritual objects like bells and dorjes and mandalas. These are used as ritual implements to support our visualization and meditation. So emphasis is placed on ritual purity through behaviors, dress codes and rituals, and cleanliness of ritual space and objects. We see this as a pure realm, and we see this as a demonstration of non-dual reality. So it's important that these rituals, are done with that attitude. So the essence of ritual provides a structural kind of structured framework to train the mind, and supports, our tantric meditative practices. And it's considered, it's aimed at rapid enlightenment in the Vajrayana Buddhism. It's considered the fast track. We see ourselves, as Buddhas, and we see this reality that we're in as a pure realm. And so that is the nature of this tantric path. So this is what we call this ritual. Everything serves to further, but these, the ritual, we have rituals in life. We have weddings, and we have funerals, and we have different, to commemorate certain things, or to remind ourselves of certain aspects of life. But this is more for understanding our true nature of emptiness and the non-dual dual aspect of our Buddha nature. Any question about anything so far? Does that sound, does that satisfy that question?
Well, Lama, it seems like all these are my questions. So,
Okay.
as far as ritual, I don't know if we really talk about it or teach about it here. We have mudras during Amitabha or Medicine Buddha or Tara. During Medicine Buddha and Tara, we have the bells and dorjes, and people just pick them up and just sort of swing them around and ring them. And there's not really been a discussion with the newer students, or even students who've been here for over 5 years, of the importance of the ritual itself.
Yeah, understanding what it's about, that is important. And, so when an abhisheka is done or empowerment is done, it should be explained. And I agree with you, it often is not. And a person just has the experience of going through it, but really doesn't understand, the pace empowerment, the different aspects that go into that, the ritual aspects of it. So that could definitely be emphasized more. I agree.
And
So
I
the
would
bell
say,
and dorje, that's a symbol for monks, to often, on our malas, you'll have, the counters on there will also be represented. One will have a bell, the other a dorje, representing, emptiness and skillful action. So all of these things are to place the mind in a position of these things trigger certain realizations. They trigger our mind stream in a particular kind of way. Just like if we look at Shenrezi and, what are the garments? What are the accoutrements that he wears? All have symbolic references. So it's good to teach those. I agree.
this leads to another question, for not a brand new student, but a newer, let's say someone frequents a particular practice and you have an extra bell and dorje, is it appropriate for them to participate in group practice with that instrument if they haven't had the complete teaching?
It is fine to participate, but it is good that they understand that it's considered sacred objects. So most people don't understand. Most people don't understand a rupa that has been blessed is the Buddha, is considered sacred. And when they take refuge, we talk about having that mind set of reverence for images of the Buddha or Dharma texts or representations of the Sangha. So this is part of ritual. But yeah, they could use it if they're taught. They know how to use it, and it should be mentioned. That this what it represents, and that they are considered sacred objects, and to be handled with that kind of awareness or mindfulness.
And Lama, you mentioned a representation of the Sangha. What do you have some examples of what might be considered a representation, like a picture of your teacher? Would that be like a representation of the Sangha?
Well, that would be more like the Buddha, but even a piece of clothing of a monk or something like that is considered an aspect of the Sangha, or those things that are representative of particularly the enlightened Sangha, but all those monastics or those who have taken vows and are wearing robes, they are to be respected in the same kind of way as representatives of the Sangha. And people think, they don't want to bow down, or they don't want to demean themselves in a particular kind of way by even showing respect to monks or the Sangha. But it is important that we respect that aspect. Those are considered the three jewels: the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. But sometimes that gets lost, and particularly in our culture, it's misunderstood. When people come into a shrine room and they do 3 prostrations, they think that they're prostrating, to a person, and we're prostrating to the Buddha. And in our mind, the teacher is the Buddha, and the representation of the Buddha. We are bowing with our body, speech, and mind, but it's really, to our own Buddha nature as well. We understand that we have this Buddha nature, the teacher and the Buddha are reflective of that Buddha nature, and it's with that respect that we make those prostrations, that devotion and that faith and that understanding. It's not that we're, this is a non-theistic kind of thing. I was raised Catholic, and we'd always genuflect when we went in, on one knee, on you genuflect as a show of reverence to that. And It's done, you know, even in to kings and things like that. People would genuflect to a higher power, and there's no higher power than the Buddha. So in the same way, we're showing respect to that energy. But in this situation, you know, we are also the Buddha, and we were just talking about Vajra Pride. So if we have that recognition and we have that understanding of with our body, the physical form, with our speech, the aspect of Dharma as well, and you know, our mind, we make our prostrations, and in the Mahayana, we do it for the benefit of all sentient beings. You know, that is part of our progress on the path, is to use what the Buddha taught. We bring everything to the path as a vehicle to extend our wisdom and our compassion and our understanding. So everything serves to further, but most people don't really have the correct view of these things. That's why we teach. That's why we try to bring clarity to this, and that's why we're having this conversation as well. So I appreciate the opportunity, you know, to clarify some of these points that often are not talked about, as Jump South said.
There
So,
anyone?
yeah, if you have questions, this is good to ask, whether it's about your practice or other things. But what was the other question that was?
Lama, I had one question first before that.
Okay, please.
Teaches the Tantra of dance within our lineage?
Yeah.
And is any of our teachers that are currently at KTD now, or is that something that's only taught out at the monastery in India?
So what is it we're talking about? The dance?
That's about dance.
Yeah, so the Vajra dancing is a story. You know, this is an aspect where the dancer really takes on an aspect of an enlightened being, and through that dance, they're telling a story about that enlightenment. And it could be done in words, but this is done in the way of movement and in dance. And each of those movements are reflective of a particular wisdom or a particular aspect of that, whether it's a deity or whatever the character. They're dressed up, you know, to represent that form. It's not like going to a dance hall and dancing. It is it's like a meditation. It is like a vehicle for enlightenment. It's very mindful dancing. And yes, it takes a long time to learn these dances. They're very particular, actually, and they're not easy. So there's special training, and they are done in the monasteries, as you say. Yes, they're taught.
We had two more questions. And of course, if anybody has questions online, you can unmute yourself. The next one is being able to, how do we recognize the difference between idiot compassion versus bodhicitta?
Okay, well, idiot compassion refers to compassion that is misguided. You know, it is ineffective or makes the situation worse generally. It comes from a place of weakness and enabling harmful behavior or lack, you know, because of a lack of wisdom. We think we may be doing something positive, but we don't have the insight or the clarity really to see the situation. Bodhicitta refers to the enlightened wisdom guided by compassion, or the guided compassion at the heart of the Mahayana Buddhism. It arises from an understanding, you know, emptiness and interdependence. So idiot compassion, they feel sorry for the suffering, but does not work to generally alleviate or uproot its causes. Bodhicitta is actively engaged in relieving suffering through skillful means. And so again, in comparison, idiot compassion can reinforce a victim mentality and codependence. Bodhicitta empowers others through teaching Dharma and helping them overcome suffering. So it helps a person, overcome suffering themselves. So idiot compassion is reactive generally and emotional. Bodhicitta is reasoned and wise and balanced and able to discern appropriate action. And idiot compassion seeks to make oneself feel good often through a show of care or pity, which is very different than compassion. And bodhicitta's motivation is to truly benefit others without a personal agenda. What else can we say? We can say idiot compassion lacks understanding of karma, lacks understanding of emptiness, and bodhicitta is based on these profound insights into the nature of reality. So in summary, we can say that bodhicitta represents a mature, enlightened form of compassion, grounded in prajna, in wisdom, while idiot compassion is misguided and does not generally help reduce suffering. I think we can say that about it. Any questions about that or comments?
I still consider myself such a beginner, and sometimes when I want to help out, I don't have the skillful means to do so. But because I don't have the skillful means to do so, I don't often then recognize that I'm getting caught up in the fact that it's not going to help. It's that I know I want to help. I do my best to try to help because somewhere in my mind says, yes, you understand this. Yes, you can help. But then it doesn't.
Yeah, well, that's wisdom. I mean, you can see it. But, when we talk about bodhicitta, the ultimate kind of situation that is we're talking about here, that is, prajna. And that gradually grows. So we begin with relative bodhicitta, we aspire or aspiration bodhicitta, but it's not until we really understand emptiness that we can ultimately do ultimate bodhicitta and actually be of benefit to beings. So as you say, we're beginners. So I wouldn't be too hard on myself about that. But if you can see and try to work with that person for their benefit and not, as we were saying, that the other is more like pity, and we feel superior to that individual, or that is really foolish. So we're gradually, gaining a prajna through our practice, and we can implement that or practice that. So as they say, the bodhicitta, the aspiration bodhicitta, is like having the aspiration to go somewhere, and the ultimate bodhicitta is actually taking the step to get there and to making our way to that goal. So in the same way, we have to know where we're going, and then we have to do the action. But the fact that, the way you mentioned it, you want to do something, that is good to have that impulse, that compassionate feeling for someone else who is suffering. And we do the best we can. And, unless we're omniscient, we don't know how our action is really going to act on that person. Is it going to be beneficial? But your intention is important. So we do the best we can. We fake it till we make it. But don't stop yourself from interacting and being of benefit. That's still something that we aspire to and that we can actively engage in.
I have something to say about this topic.
Yes.
I have 2 points to say. One is like when you have to put up a boundary with somebody who's been in your life and you have like this preconditioned like want to enable them or to help them out of pity like we're talking about, but then you recognize like when you're feeling guilty for like enacting these boundaries and then you're like, wait, I think this is like that preconditioned like part of me that's feeling guilty, but like the new part of me knows like we have to move in a different direction now. And then the other thing that I thought about was sometimes like when we think that we're helping somebody and we aren't being very skillful, um that we kind of get too emotionally invested and have an expectation and how we expect that person to like fix their problems and how we've tried to been guiding them. And so those are 2 problems that I've noticed in myself lately when I'm trying to be helpful. And I've picked up on them very quickly. Like I'm like, oh, I'm triggered because I have an expectation and I'm too emotionally invested. And then like realizing that and then like trying to like resituate myself in the situation so that I'm, you know, trying to be more skillful. Like it's kind of hard, but at the same time when those things happen, it's like, wow, I'm glad I figured this out.
Yes, good for you. And good that you have that inclination to try to figure it out. We talked about the different aspects of idiot compassion as opposed to bodhicitta. And bodhicitta requires an understanding of karma and emptiness. There's only so much we can do. A person, Buddhism is we take responsibility, for our actions. But bodhicitta is based, on profound insights into the nature of reality, and we are still in the process of cultivating that prajna, or cultivating that wisdom. So, but part of that is awareness of our actions and our speech and our conduct. So, the fact that you are reflecting on that is good. That's how we make changes. And you don't have to get sucked into the drama. You see it as empty. You see it as karmic causes and conditions. We can help where we can, but there's only so much we can do. I mean, like the Buddha said, we can't change another person's karma. We can just try to be there and supportive in whatever way we have the capacity to do that. With as much patience and compassion as we can muster. But, that's about all we can do in certain situations. Some people are really lost in their drama and they're very attached to it. And we have to see the truth in what our capacity is to be a benefit to them. But good that you're reflecting like that. I think that is progress on the path. Anything else?
One more question here. So how do we use the skillful means of wrathful compassion if that is truly possible?
Say that again. I was having trouble hearing that.
How do we use the skillful means of wrathful compassion, and is that truly possible?
Yes, it is truly possible, but it does require skill. In Vajrayana Buddhism, wrathful compassion is seen as an advanced meditative practice that can be used as a skillful means, like we've been talking about, to benefit others. Some ways it can be applied include, manifesting as, we do practices, like Mahakala and things like that. These are the practices of wrathful deities who cut through our delusions and our ego clinging in oneself and others And this can help purify obstructing energies. Now, we may not have the capacity to do that as Ma Kala might, but using wrathful methods symbolically to overcome inner and outer obstacles to liberation is possible. For example, uh, communicating sometimes Dharma truths that need to be heard, though through wrathful symbolism, as ordinary language may not penetrate deeply because people are in such denial or confusion. But how we do that, again, we have to be very skillful and frightening sentient beings into virtuous behavior is really, we have to be careful. And but sometimes that behavior, when more gentle means have failed, out of desire to ultimately guide them from harm, can be used. Again, it is our motivation, but that's got to be guided by our prajna, our wisdom. So, as meditation on non-duality, realizing emptiness, again, this is important, and compassion are two sides of the same coin. Wrath reveals the lack of inherent self or other, and interdependence. Everything are causes and conditions. So to cultivate an intense focus and single-pointed concentration needed for advanced tantric practices such as this, it really does involve concepts like emptiness, so we have to understand that. For practitioners with wrathful tendencies, using these energies, understanding these energies constructively within the ritual practices, they can help us progress spiritually instead of, harming others with our wrath. It can be used skillfully, but the question, you said, can it be done? Yes, but it requires quite a bit of mindfulness. So in highly skilled hands, wrathful compassion can serve as a device to shock beings into wisdom when done from a place of true renunciation and bodhicitta. But not too many people have that capacity. But can it be done? Absolutely, it can be done.
Now, that was, again, one of my questions. I been somewhat struggling with a couple of different people who I speak with, and I'm trying to help, and just the calm voice, the reasoning just doesn't seem to stick. And all I can think of is, as a child, if a child, every time they went outside, they picked up a rock and they threw it at another being or threw it at a car or at a window, oh, no, don't do that. That's not nice. And you explain it to them and you do your best to keep them away from the rocks. But there are a lot of rocks in the world that at some point, the pop against the back of the head to get their attention sometimes works.
Yeah, for a mother and they don't want their child running into the middle of the road, they don't understand the danger of that, then your wrathful intervention to scare them, and so that they don't readily do that again, serves an important function. So yes, like those examples that you mentioned, sometimes we have to be on the wrathful side, but you're not being wrathful, to hurt anyone or to to cause harm. You're doing it to protect them. That's so the wrathful deities are about that too, to protect us and to keep us from harming ourselves or others with our behavior or our actions.
Just always feel like whenever I try to speak a little louder and say, hey, listen up. You know, you're not listening. This is what needs to be done to remedy the situation. Part of me wonders whether or not that's my ego saying, well, I know what's right. So since I know what's right, you should be doing what I think is correct.
Well, you don't want to doubt yourself, every time you act. I mean, sometimes our impulse is accurate. Sometimes our intuition and our instincts are accurate. So if we can't second guess ourselves all the time, or we would just be frozen in time, we wouldn't act at all. So, but it is important that we be skillful. And I know that may sound like a contradiction, but we do have to be mindful. We have to have the wisdom, to guide our action as well.
Lama, is part of that the difference in recognizing that this is coming from a compassionate place and versus attachment to our anger?
Absolutely. That would be a point of recognition. Yeah. Yeah, we're not feeling anger. We're feeling compassion in that action. And although it may be wrathful appearing, just like Mahakala, who is a wrathful aspect of Chenrezig, the bodhisattva of loving kindness and compassion, and his actions are that of compassion and loving kindness. But for that individual, it requires that kind of action.
Thank you, Lama, for skillfully answering all the questions I put out today.
Okay. Thank you for the questions. Maybe they've helped everybody. They're good questions. Thank you. Okay. So you're about to approach ideas of Tantra and Sutra. Is that right? Or the next readings?
That's correct. Tantric levels of attainment.
Uh-huh. Well, there are key differences between Sutra and Tantra in Buddhism. Should we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think that would be good. I think sometimes we forget even the definitions or the differences between the two.
So a sutra refers to the traditional Buddhist teachings found in the sutras or sermons attributed to the Buddha. And Tantra refers to more esoteric practices and teachings that developed later. And Sutra focuses on renunciation, on morality, on meditation and wisdom to achieve liberation. This is more the foundational vehicle. And Tantra incorporates these, but adds advanced visualizations and ritual practices using mantra and mandalas and lots of visualization, like when we do the deity practices. That's Tantra. And Sutra emphasizes external renunciation from worldly pleasures and attachments. And Tantra teaches internal renunciation, where one transforms pleasures into the path rather than renouncing them. We transform these emotions. And where the goal of Sutra is nirvana or liberation from cyclic existence, Tantra's goal is Buddhahood to attain full enlightenment quickly by transforming our ordinary body, speech, and mind into that of a Buddha, an enlightenment. So Sutra adheres to a more dualistic worldview of subject and object, and Tantra is based on non-duality of emptiness and seeing all phenomena as inseparable from ultimate reality. Practices in Sutra do involve meditation and cultivation of discipline and morality. And Tantra adds complex rituals and initiation by a guru and elaborate sadhanas, that we practice and practice texts and things like that. And a sutra is considered more gradual and exoteric. Tantra involves advanced esoteric practices reserved for the highly qualified practitioner and requires a relationship, with their teacher, and empowerments that we briefly spoke about those things. So in essence, Tantra is a faster, more transformationally powerful, but also it is seen as a little riskier vehicle using, symbolic methods, and so it can be misunderstood if not guided by a master or guided by the guru, the Lama. Any other, so that, I mean, I'm sure, Charlie Rinpoche is going to have a lot more to say about that as you progress in the teaching and the essence of Buddhism. Yeah.
Do we see Tantra just in Vajrayana, or is it in any other schools?
It's in Tantra. Yeah, it's yes. Even it's an aspect of Tantra. It's even beyond Mahayana to a certain degree, the tantric path. It includes all of them. I mean, you have to have all of those qualities, so the Vajra, the foundation vehicle, sometimes called, Hinayana or Theravada, and the Mahayana. But the Vajrayana goes a step further, as we were just saying, in the Tantra.
Well, I've often heard Vajrayana referred to as Tantrayana.
Yes, that is another name for it, Tantrayana. Sometimes it's also called Mantrayana because of the use of mantra. So those three things are pretty synonymous: the Vajrayana, Mantrayana, and Tantrayana.
I've heard this when I was up at KDD with visitors or people who were there for the first time doing a little retreat time. And there seems to be a completely different understanding in the West of what Tantra is. They think of the musician Sting and his sexual exploitations of sex for 6 hours, and this is Tantra. And when you try to say, well, no, this has really nothing to do with that.
Right.
This is what Tantra is.
I call that California Tantra. But it is, I mean, often, in the Tantra, we do see these, Yabyum deities in concert with each other. So it can be misunderstood, as sexual. It is really, the aspect of the male and female, the skillful means and emptiness aspect conjoined, so that in a visual form. So that, again, is misunderstood as pure sexuality, which is really a misunderstanding, as you say. So you were also reading about the Kayas last time, is that right?
We actually were, the last bit also had the modes of compassion and the two aspects of Buddhist teachings, the three turnings of the wheel. So it sort of summarized the yanas. I thought one point which was interesting was the difference between definitive teachings and the teachings on the difference between something being literal and something being taken as interpretive.
Yeah, definitive.
That the Galupas decided that Tathagata Garbha was more of an appeasement to people to let them know that they still had a soul. And whereas it was not literal, it was more of like a parable. Whereas the Kagyu, it was, no, this is what it is.
No, the Buddha spent a lot of time talking about Tathagarbha, which is our Buddha nature, which is the aspect of what you're talking about. And that is definitely an important part of the Buddha's teaching. So that would be considered, along with the Prajnaparamita, a definitive teaching, of emptiness. And that is definitive. Sometimes the Buddha talked about, past lives and things like that, which are all kind of fairy tales. There is really no past, present, or future. There is, we are, this situation that we find ourselves in is more dreamlike than actual. And so that is not a definitive kind of thing, but the aspect of our Buddha nature and emptiness is definitive. That is the essence of what the Buddha taught, the essential aspect. Some of it is, again, you have to remember who he was talking to at different times, and it may even seem contradictory. Again, the Buddha taught 84,000 different ways to appeal to all those 84,000 possibilities, of mind streams that are occluded, that are, kleshas of many different kinds. And so there's, the Buddha taught many different ways, but there is a difference between some of them and the definitive aspect that he taught later.
When we read the history of the Buddha and his mother seeing a six-tusked elephant and walking through Vajra at birth and all these things, which are very miraculous sounding, but to me, it's always sounded just like parables from the Bible, that there was a sort of a lesson there, but it wasn't real. It was a moral lesson, but not necessarily reality.
That doesn't make it not real. It can very well be real. I mean, we can imagine anything. Don't think of your practice when you're, we talk about the visualization that we do when we're doing a deity practice, and we imagine it in a particular kind of way. And we are empowering that in a particular kind of way. And that is important that we do it like that, and that it manifests in a particular kind of way. We can think of anything, and that pretty much anything we think of can be made real. I mean, there are monks that fly. There are, handprints in rock, and there are things that we say, oh, that can't be. But in fact, when you let go of our attachments and our beliefs in a particular kind of reality, anything can happen. So we are stuck because of our beliefs. We are stuck because of our ideas about the way things work, and we can't get out of it. So we create this particular reality. But that doesn't mean it's the only reality there is. That's the only reality we can relate to, but that doesn't mean there's the only reality there is. Everything's vibration, and everything's vibrating at a different kind of resonance. And that's, we talk about the kayas, the Nirmanakaya, the emanation body. This refers to the physical manifestation that the Buddha takes in order to benefit living beings, such as Gautama Buddha appeared in the world so we could see him. But there's also the Sambhogakaya, which is very real as well. We can't see it, but that doesn't mean it's not there. And this particular body refers to the subtle body of a Buddha possesses when teaching advanced Dharma to those beings who have opened their wisdom eye and can be seen as such. So in the pure lands. and it is visible only to those highly spiritually advanced. And we might say it doesn't exist because we can't see it, but there are those who are vibrating at a different level who can indeed see that. And then there's the Dharmakaya. We're talking about the Kayas now, which I think you've had some reading about. So this is the truth body. And this refers to the essence of enlightenment itself and the ultimate nature of reality, devoid of any conceptual elaboration. It's empty, formless aspect of a Buddha being. So Buddha possesses all of these, the Nirmanakaya, the Sambhogakaya, the Dharmakaya, and these three kayas are not considered separate entities, but rather three ways of perceiving the single non-dual reality of Buddhahood. And the Nirmanakaya emanates to interact with the world. The Sambhogakaya teaches higher truths. And the Dharmakaya is the empty absolute ground of being itself, devoid of any attributes. So together, they give a more complete picture of a Buddha's full enlightenment. And there is sometimes a fourth kaya, which is really in the tradition, a fourth kaya is mentioned in addition to the standard three kayas, Nirmanakaya, Sambhogakaya, and Dharmakaya. And this fourth one is Svabhavakaya. And this can be understood as the essential or suchness body of a Buddha. And it is really a combination of all of them. The eternal primordial essence or intrinsic nature, the Svabhava of a Buddha, prior to manifestation in form, and the true emptiness or voidness aspect of a Buddha's enlightenment beyond conceptual elaboration, and the essence of a Buddha that transcends the three kayas and is their ultimate ground or source. So while the standard three kayas describe a Buddha's manifestations and attributes from conventional perspectives, this is a point of the deepest ineffable suchness, the ultimate reality prior to form. So yeah, this everything, because we can't see it or understand it doesn't mean it doesn't exist. We just we don't have the capacity. We will, but just like as we traverse the 10 levels of a bodhisattva, there are certain cities that come with that. So we're on the road.
I've sort of joked with some people with talking about deity visualization and knowing that the deity is there, having the confidence that when we invite the deity, that they're there. We're not making it up, that they're there. But at the same time, since they're not solid, I've joked around that it's Schrodinger's deity. It's there and not there simultaneously.
Yeah, that's the paradox.
So I'm not just, that's a good way to describe it.
Yeah. So I think you also are going to be, if I recall the text correctly, you're also going to be talking about the 6 yogas of Naropa along the way soon, the advanced tantric meditation practices in Tibetan Buddhism. And we can talk about those, and we can also talk about the 4 abodes, the aspect of the 4 measurables of the Brahma Viharas, or sublime states. I think that's another thing that you've talked about in the text that you're reading.
Yeah, we're 2 chapters away from the yogas of Naropa.
Okay.
Lama, I have a question. So what is your suggestion on how to approach some of these topics when we're not, it's like this idea that, with this idea that Chenrezig is there, but we haven't completely developed the confidence that Chenrezig is there when we're chanting. When we read about topics like this, that are more advanced and are explaining the subtle differences of Buddha nature or of Buddhas themselves, what's the best way to approach reading this as a Dharma practitioner?
We hear it, we contemplate it, and we practice it. So first we have to come into contact with it, we hear it, and then we need to really look into it deeply, contemplate it, meditate on it, and then we put it into practice. So once we have that understanding, and when we do our practice, we try to implement our understanding, and we continue to implement our understanding to greater and greater details or greater and greater ways. It's just like when we read a book. We first time we read it, we get an understanding of it. The next time we read it, we see things that we never saw before, or see it differently, because we're always changing. We are not the same as we were when we woke up this morning. We have had certain causes and conditions that have changed us to the core, and we're never the same. But we keep this kind of attitude that nothing has changed, but in fact, it has changed. And we have to be open to that possibility of, when we're doing our practice, that we can see this in a different way. And we try to see it in the way that it's being expressed in the text to the best of our ability. And, our teachers will tell us, so if we listen, as you say, we're told that they're actually here. We need to really practice that instruction so that we really feel the presence. And we can. So we continue to try to do that. So we hear it through a teaching or whatever way that comes into our reading, or whatever way we hear it, we see it, we read it, and then we contemplate it to the best of our ability. We have to it takes time. We're uprooting some old tendencies, some old attitudes that have strong emotional ties. So we're cultivating another way of being. So it does require faith, it does require devotion, and it does require the confidence. So we were talking about Vajra Pride. We have to have that confidence as well. So we develop it over time. It's not an overnight process. So we have to become able to join our mind to this way of thinking.
I think it's been a while since I've attended a teaching. Because we have new students all the time. People come in and just kind of start out. And it just seems like they're just kind of, you say fake it till you make it, but they're just looking at the Tibetan translation, the pronunciation, and doing that, but without really any understanding of what they're doing.
Correct. That's a start. Just like when we read something and we don't understand it, when we're going through the practices, we don't understand it. But the best we can do to educate the student in that way, and hopefully they do take some initiative to ask the questions. I hope that that's what we're doing here as well, so we can deepen our understanding of the practices and become more familiar with these practices and why we do it, and what it is that we're doing and why we're doing it, and get the most benefit out of it. So absolutely right. They're new students, they're newbies, they don't know. This is all new. And so we do the best we can to fill in the blanks, to fill in the gaps. But I always, tell what in the reading, if there's a word you don't understand, look it up. If it's in the book, in the glossary, or there's definitions to become familiar with these definitions, but that's good, but we need to experience it. We may have an idea of what that means, but until we actually have the experience of it, it is an intellectual exercise, but it starts there. I mean, there's no harm in that, but that is not the end all and be all. So we have to really take the time. It takes time.
At some point, would introducing newer students to, like the commentary, Chokhor Duchen wrote on Chinese and Amitabha practice. It's really wonderful commentary. At this point, when you say this, this is what's going on. And when you say this, this is what is going on.
Right.
That's sort of missing out. I feel sometimes that we're not giving enough instruction to students here, whether they're here a month or 5 years, that, at this point, you're Chinrezi, you're just not saying the mantra. Something is going on here besides just how fast you can say a mantra.
It's good to remind them of that, and it's good to review that. And that's why the Rinpoche had that document produced, because it is important to understand that, what we're doing. So to continue to review it and make it one's own is important. So to have those texts available and to recommend them to the students, that they buy them, they have them, they review them, they study them. These are texts that are important if they're actually going to dive into the Dharma. They need to really understand what they're doing, or it's just, it's very superficial. Yeah, I definitely want to reinforce that idea, so that, and I mean, you can read these monographs, for the different practices together. Take some time to do it. You don't have to make things up. You've got it right there. Rinpoche is saying, when you do this, this is what that means, or this is what we're doing, so that you implant that meaning. We have to have meaning for what we're doing. That's why we have, this last Sunday was the first Sunday of the month, and we do our practices in English, because just chanting the Tibetan often is not so great for people. They're not Tibetans. They don't really understand it. It's beautiful to chant it in the Tibetan, but it's better to understand it from my point of view. It's important to know what you're saying and to have a heartfelt feeling for it. So that is important in all of these practices.
One thing that it's just kind of piggybacking off of Jamso's, questions there. The other time, sometimes I think too that people's karma gets in the way of them deepening their practice. We have a teaching on these practices, and there's only 2 to 3 people there, and I know that X amount of people that are doing this practice, at least a couple of times a month. I think there's that. That's we're trying. I guess we try to give everything we can, and then sometimes
continue to do it. That you're absolutely right. You have to have the merit and the karma to really see the truth of it. And many, what is the thing that in the Bible, many come, a few are chosen, or whatever the thing is. But it is true that a person has to have the prerequisites, of understanding, but hopefully, if they make it to the door, that is something in and of itself, that at least they have those causes and conditions and the merit. There's something in their mind stream that says, of all the things they could be doing at that time, that they made it through the door. So that's positive. They have some merit, but you want to do what you can to make it attractive, and to see what they need and try to provide that teaching to make it understandable to understand why they're doing this and what is the purpose, what's the point. So continue to do that, and you may not fill the room, that doesn't matter. If we have a couple of people who are dedicated to practice, that is great. That is great. The numbers don't necessarily mean success or failure. We will continue to do what we do if there's one person there, but the more we do it, and the more that it's our own merit as well. Some people can seem to attract more students than others. This is karma, and so it is both the teacher and the student. And once we have that connection, then we can do something with it. But it's important to find that connection. And there was something that brought them to the center, and there is something that they can leave with as well. If they're first-time students. And it's good to know how they arrived there and what their needs are. But that is, that's a skillful means, to be able to go to the place that touches them where they need it. What will keep them coming back. Because we want to benefit beings, and we know they're suffering, and they're there for a reason. And so we have to check what we're doing, what we're offering. Is it attractive to people? If not, why not? And we do the best we can. So don't think badly of yourself because that there you don't fill the room. You just keep doing what you're doing, and the rest will follow. I mean, you just celebrated 38 years of the Jacksonville KTC. You're doing something right. There not too many places have that kind of longevity and that kind of strength. So congratulations.
Thank you, Lama.
Any other questions? We can do another little teaching of some sort if you like. We have about 15 minutes or so. Anything else on your mind?
Lama, I did have, as we were reading, and I'm not sure if this is completely separate from the idea, we were talking about Sutra and Tantra. And in Charlie Rinpoche's talk at the end of Kaya, he talks about the two aspects of the Buddha's teachings.
Yeah.
And talks about the Ka and the Tenger. And the Ka being the teachings that came from the Buddha's mouth, and the Tenger, or the commentarial, he uses the word exegeses, which we had to look up. That was a tough one. The commentaries.
Yeah.
But then talks about the literal teachings, and the second is the teachings inspired by the Buddha in his presence. Do all of those teachings fit under sutra? Or is it those are both sutra and tantra?
Sutra is the teachings of the Buddha. In Tantra, sometimes we see that it comes out of another person's mouth. For example, the Prajnaparamita, where there's a discussion, and the Buddha is there, but he's actually not giving that teaching, but it is a definitive teaching nonetheless. And so we usually say that the sutra is the teachings of the Buddha, but that's not all the teachings of the Buddha. They are influenced by the Buddha in various ways in Tantra. and are considered, just as accurate or just as real. So I'm not sure how he presented that, but the discourses in the Tantra are responses to the teachings of the Buddha and explanations. Sometimes they are very they need explanation a little bit more than is given, so they're expanded by all of our and these are by teachers who have the capacity, the wisdom to do that. So we hear about these different teachings, through the elaboration in the Tantra. And many of already there's not a lot of translations that of these texts. There's a lot more texts that haven't even been translated yet, which is amazing. So we certainly have enough to work with, but there's more. And there's many translation groups that are in the process of trying to complete the translation process.
Yeah, that's definitely almost, it's pretty mind-blowing that there's things we haven't read or even discovered or learned.
Well, we can stop here if there's no further questions. I think that we've elaborated and answered the questions that you had. So if there's no more questions, we can stop here and dedicate the merit. Is there any other announcements or anything that need to be mentioned?
Just our regular practice schedule, 9 a.m. for meditation this Saturday. We're currently reading The Heart is Noble by His Holiness Karmapa at 10 a.m. And then we'll have our regular Chinrezi and Amitabha practice.
Right. All right, so we'll dedicate the merit. Through this merit, may all beings having one omniscient perception defeat all harmful enemies, and may all beings be liberated from the ocean of existence and its surging waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. And may all sentient beings be happy. May the lower realms be forever empty. May the prayers of all bodhisattvas abiding in any of the levels be fulfilled. Victorious over the four Maras and the activity of all Buddhas, Karmapa, may your teachings, the essence of the teachings, the heart of the Dharma, fill and pervade all directions without ceasing, continuously increasing, and auspiciously ever flourishing. May they bring good fortune. So thank you, everyone. I'll see you next month. And consider the rest of this day to be engaged in good actions, because they're magnified 100 million times. And it's always my pleasure to be with you. So I thank you for attending.
Thank you, Lama.
I'll see you next time. Okay.
You bye.
Good night.
Thank you, Lama Losang.
Thank you.
Good to see you again.
Thank you. Good to be here again.
Good night, all. Thank you,
Good night.
Mike.